And then Sandra should be back. She was having microphone difficulties earlier. Okay, we are live.
Okay, folks, we'll call the meeting to order. We would ask that everyone would identify themselves, the commission members and county officials, starting with District 1, ending at District. Then we'll move along with the agenda.
Yes, Chairman Brooks, you hear me okay?
Yes.
Great. Jason Capel, District 1, 6315 Spotswood Trail, Gordonsville, Virginia is my location.
This is George Yancey, District 2, 16170 Cox Mill Road, Gordonsville, Virginia, 22942, and that is my location.
Donald Brooks, District 3, 9258 Alvarona Road, Unionville, Virginia, 22567. My grandkids' playroom is my location.
I'm Julie Zellmaker, District 4, and I'm at my parents' house in Culpeper so that I hopefully will have better internet connection. That is 17348 Pelham View Drive, Culpeper, Virginia.
Jim Hutchison, District 5. I'm at 525 Harrison Circle, Locust Grove, Virginia.
Okay, Sandra, are you with us?
I am. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
You can. Okay, good, great.
State your name and where you're located.
Oh, Sandra Thornton, at 214 Old Bickley Town Road in Louisa.
Okay. Eric Lansing, I think, is with us. And the county attorney, and is Mr. Mark Johnson with us? Anyone heard anything, Mr. Johnson's District 1 Board Representative? Okay, it does appear that we have a quorum with all members present. Can I have approval of the agenda before I ask for the minutes, I guess?
I make a motion to approve the agenda as presented.
I'll
George
second.
Yancey, District 2.
I second it.
Who seconded it?
Hutch.
Okay, so we got District 2 making the motion, District 5 seconded. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any
Aye.
opposition? Was that for opposition or in favor? Any opposition? Okay, so it appears the approval of the September 3rd minutes.
Mr. Chairman, do you need to read the electronic qualification, the legal language before we start the meeting?
You know, you may be right on that. I probably do. Thank you. This meeting is being held electronically pursuant to and in compliance with the continuity of government ordinance or an ordinance to effectuate the change in certain deadlines and to modify public meeting and public hearing practices and procedures to address continuity of operations associated with the COVID-19 pandemic. Adopted April 28th, 2020 by the Orange County Board of Supervisors in accordance with Virginia Code 15.2-1413. The meeting is accessible by YouTube, www.youtube.com/channel/UCNL EM-LGR XY DFK CPI8-JOQ. If you're interested, you can go on our website. This is on the website, Orange County, Virginia Gov, to tell you where that YouTube is. Thank you so much, Mr. Hutchinson, for reminding me. This meeting will be conducted remotely and there will be no physical public access during the meeting. There will be no opportunity for the public to comment. No opportunity for the public to comment. As we get down into our scheduled proposed zoning text amendments, and public hearings, we will give further instructions. Now I ask for approval of the minutes of September 3rd. You should have them in your packets. I'm going to abstain because I don't think I was at that meeting.
You're right. I'll make a motion to approve the minutes.
I'll second it, Mr. Chairman. District 1.
Okay, it's District 4 makes a motion to approve. District 1, Representative makes the second. All in favor, say aye.
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 Seems unanimous of the 4 that were in attendance. I again state my abstention just because I was not there. I do not have any disagreements with it, but I was not at that meeting. Okay. New business, scheduling of proposed zoning text amendments.
Mr. Chairman, if I may, there was an item that I had intended to include in your agenda as an information item for new business, that the item itself, the proposed text amendment, was prepared by Mr. Lansing, but I did not, with the press of other matters, didn't get the background memo done for that. We have discovered in the past few months some inconsistencies in our zoning code with respect to special exceptions and the authority of the Board of Zoning Appeals. Several matters have arisen over the last few months where this became obvious to us, and we just would like to present this to you for your consideration to correct what we believe are some inconsistencies. So with your permission, we would like to include this as a work session item for your next meeting, either the October 15 meeting or your November 5th meeting.
What's the pleasure of the commission based on the information we just received? Do we want to include it in our next work session or
I'd say
comments?
November.
Mr. Chairman, I would ask the question, what time element does Mrs. Thornton or Mr. Lansing expect that would take?
The discussion of the matter,
Yes.
I mean, I would really, it's fairly straightforward. I would expect it would only be a matter of a few minutes.
Then I would make a motion, we add it to the agenda for the 15th and move it along.
Is there a second?
I'll second that. Hutch,
District
5.
5, District 2 recommends we move it to October. District 5 seconds it. All in favor, say aye.
Hold on a second, Mr. Chairman.
Yes.
I just have a question real quick. So
Sure.
are these text amendments different than the waiver document? So this is these are separate issues from this waiver issue that Mr. Lansing?
Yes.
Okay. Okay. All right.
Yeah, just this, there's a provision in the regulation pertaining to the Board of Zoning Appeals that specifically states that the BZA has no authority to grant special exceptions. And in 3 of our zoning districts, we have occasions where it's indicated that the BZA could consider granting a special exception. So we would like to make those corrections.
Is there any other comment or question?
Just real quick. So the correction is that the text amendment would be to allow the BZA to make the special exceptions or to take away the special exceptions.
It would be to take away from the zoning districts the option for the BZA to consider a special exception.
I
To
see.
delete,
Okay.
to delete that.
Okay. Got it. Got it. Okay. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Appreciate it.
Is there any other questions or comments? Okay, all in favor say aye.
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 Chair votes aye. All opposed? Motion is carried unanimously. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
So we're gonna move into our public hearings. And I'm gonna ask that as we start them, that Mrs. Thornton, when after she gives her presentations or before she gives her presentation, that she establishes a deadline for the comments and those type things to come in. So we'll have those dates when we're looking at it on these public hearings. The first one we're going to do is the rezoning of 20-01 signature series. Then we're going to rezoning 20-02 Storeland LLC. And we'll ask the county to go forth. Then we will ask the applicant to go forth. We will ask that the county, any questions we have for the county, be asked right after the county gets finished. And then we would ask the developer to stay behind on Zoom until we conclude with questions for them, if there be any, in that order. Ms. Thornton, you can go ahead.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chairman. And maybe just as since this will be information for all of these public hearing matters, the deadline established for public comment is Friday, October 9 at 5 p.m. for written comments. The format of those would be not exceeding 1 page, not exceeding 500 words per person. But we do need to have those by 5 p.m. on Friday, October 9th, in preparation for your meeting on October 15, at which time you will consider those public comments. And I would expect that you would, at that point, have further discussion and then be prepared to formulate your recommendation to the Board of Supervisors.
Thank you. I will only add one thing. I'm sorry. I would only add,
and I was just about to say,
go ahead, Ms. Thornton.
I'm sorry.
I'm sorry. I was going to say, I would only add that these public comments will be posted so folks can see them.
Yes, we will plan to do that on that Friday before we leave for the day. Of course, the following Monday is a day that the county offices are closed for Columbus Day. So I expect that material to be posted. Well, it won't be by 5 o'clock since that's the deadline, but on Friday evening.
That's the question I have, Sandra. Should we not move that to 3 so you can have it posted by 5?
Well, the legal ad, and maybe Eric can comment on this, I set 5 o'clock in the legal ad.
Okay, then we can't move it. I don't need Eric. I appreciate Eric, but if you put that out there, that's where we want to let it stay.
That's what I thought, and hopefully there will be, we won't be overrun with comments, but whatever we do get, we will process and have on the website before we leave for the weekend.
Okay. Okay, go ahead with the county's position and presentation with the signature series development.
Okay, thank you. This is rezoning 20-01 Signature Station zoning map amendment to rezone 75.8 acres from commercial, or rather general commercial C2 conditional and multifamily residential R4 conditional to plan development mixed use. The applicant is Signature Series Development LLC, and they are the owners of the property, which is identified as parcel 3 on tax map 4. Just as a bit of introduction, the Planning Commission could consider recommending approval of the petition as a conditional rezoning based on proffers submitted, which are intended to achieve compliance with the 50-year vision for the Germanna Wilderness Plan, Sub-Area 1, Spotswood, which includes in that sub-area plan, development of Signature Station project led by professional services and offices. This project was conditionally approved in 2013 with proffer number 6 stating no residential plats can be recorded, nor can any residential construction commence within the R4 portion of the property until at least 25% of the commercial component has attained occupancy permitting, at least 59,375 square feet. The residential construction may also begin if a bona fide special use permit application is filed with the Orange County Planning Department and the applicant has properly completed all of the steps necessary in the application process, but said application has not been acted upon by the Planning Commission within 60 days of the date which said application was properly completed and filed by the applicant in accordance with the special use permit guidelines as of the date of this proffer statement. In 2018, the applicant began discussions with the county concerning potential amendment of this particular proffer to allow the commencement of residential development before the stipulated commercial development was attained. The pending zoning application, which is before you now, is a result of those discussions related to the amendment of proffers. The area is characterized by a mix of agricultural, residential, and commercial uses with substantial tracts of undeveloped land. Somerset Ridge subdivision lies east of the subject parcel, and Walmart is located south of the parcel across Somerset Ridge Road. The project site is less than a mile south of Germanna Community College. A power transmission line easement of variable width transects the vicinity and runs through the subject property. As referenced previously, the subject parcel was rezoned in 2013, and that rezoning is reflected in the Germanna Wilderness Area Plan adopted in 2015. The application and supporting materials, staff report, and approval documents for rezoning 11-01 were included in the materials you received for the pending application for informational purposes. Regarding community input, this proposed amendment was advertised in the Freelance Star on September 17 and 24, and in the Orange County Review on September 24. As of the writing of the staff report, no written public comments have been received concerning the application. Staff conducted a site visit and posted the property on September 22nd, 2020. Adjacent property owner notification letters were mailed on September 21st, 2020. Materials were emailed to the application review committee members on July 15, 2020. Comments were received from the Virginia Department of Transportation, Rapidan Service Authority, Culpeper Soil and Water Conservation District, and the Orange County Public Library Director, Katie Hill. Ms. Hill expressed no concerns about the proposed development and potential impacts on the wilderness branch located nearby, and copies of the VDOT RSA and Culpeper Soil and Water Conservation District comments were included in your agenda package. Would you like for me to review those comments, or?
I don't need to review them unless other commissioners do. I pretty much read everything, but what's the other commissioner's thought?
I think some of those comments are referenced as we go forward in the proffer discussion.
Okay.
And concerning the analysis and review of impacts, as I previously noted, the area in which the subject parcel is situated is characterized by a mix of uses with significant expanses of undeveloped property. Regarding natural features, according to available mapping, there is a stream and wetlands on the parcel. With respect to the comprehensive plan, as previously noted, the parcel is specifically identified for development in the GWAP Subarea 1 Spotswood portion of that plan. It's referenced in the 50-year vision as well as on map 1D future land usage guidelines. So accordingly, the proposal is generally in compliance with comprehensive plan goals and objectives. Regarding impacts of public health, safety, and welfare, the proposal would not be expected to pose any unusual impacts to public health, safety, or welfare. Increased residential density plus commercial development would be expected to create increased demand for public safety services. And the applicant has, again, as they had done in in the prior, their prior application, proffered a cash contribution of $300,000 to help offset costs associated with increased service demand. Water and sewer services will be provided by the Rapidan Service Authority, although a new water storage tank will be required along with other system upgrades. It will be necessary for the developer to provide actual water demand and sewer generation estimates in order to design appropriately sized system components. These required system upgrades will be the responsibility of the developer. Regarding impacts to environmental, scenic, and historic assets, there are no particular scenic assets within the immediate vicinity of the project site. While some historic resources have been identified nearby, no negative impacts would be expected as a result of the proposed development. There are wetlands included in the project area, as well as a stream for which riparian buffers should be provided to protect water quality and preserve the functional capacity of the wetlands relative to stormwater management. The proposed use would be compatible with current uses in the vicinity. The proposed development will increase demand for public safety services and solid waste management, as well as increase the school-age population. It would be expected that additional residents would somewhat increase the demand for library and recreation services. The need for increased capacity in these functional areas has not been quantified. With respect to fiscal and employment impacts, the applicant provided the 2011 fiscal impact statement, although it has not been updated. At that time, it was estimated that after build out and in constant dollars, the tax revenues generated for the county would be $1,474,490 with a net fiscal benefit of approximately $900,000. The analysis prepared by S. Patz and Associates also estimated that the development would create approximately 700 new full-time equivalent employment opportunities. With respect to transportation, the development will have impacts on the public transportation network in the vicinity. Although the applicant has provided updated site trip generation data, the overall traffic impact analysis that was done in 2011 has not been updated. VDOT will require traffic impact analyses for each phase of commercial construction associated with the project. As mentioned, the applicant has submitted several proffers, and the following information pertains to those proffers. They would be binding upon the applicant and run with the land if approved by the Board of Supervisors. I would note that the applicant may submit amended proffers in advance of the public hearing before the board, and the board may accept amended proffers once their public hearing has begun, provided that the amended proffers do not materially affect the overall proposal. So proffer number one, the applicant / owner, its successors, and assigns hereby agree that the development of the property will be in conformance with these proffers provided herein, which are being provided pursuant to County Zoning Ordinance Section 70-193 et sec. And pursuant to Virginia Code Section 15.2-2303 et sec. Regarding proffers. These proffers will replace and supersede all prior proffers affecting the property, including previously approved conditions under Ordinance 130611-7A. And in this regard, the proffers approved under Ordinance 130611-7A will thereby be void, unenforceable, and of no further legal effect upon the County Board of Supervisors' final approval of this proffer statement and underlying application. The proffers are effective only upon the county's full and final approval of this proffer application, zoning application, rezoning 20-01, and expiration of the applicable appeal period. And I offer the following comments on this first proffer. And the applicant has expressed the desire to have flexibility with respect to building design and signage requirements depending upon market demand and conditions at the time development occurs. It is the intent of the planned development mixed-use district both to permit flexibility while at the same time focusing on high-quality design. While the application as submitted indicates the developer's intent to comply with requirements of the GWAP, the plan itself does not set forth design guidelines. You may know that the county drafted some guidelines at one point in time, but those have not been adopted. Given these facts, it would be difficult for a site plan reviewer to determine whether specific proposals, development proposals within the project site actually advance the stated intent of achieving high quality design in the absence of design guidelines and generalized elevation drawings for the overall site, and both of which are referenced submission requirements for PDM district applications. Staff recommends that the applicant consider amending the proffer statement to include elements of their original proffer 1 as set forth in Ordinance 130611-7A that address architectural features and construction materials. In lieu of a landscaping plan element for the general development plan, the general development plan indicates that landscaping will be established in accordance with Article 5 of the Orange County Zoning Code. However, additional requirements are specified in the Planned Development Mixed-Use District regulations. These standards would be applied during the site plan review process, regardless of whether there is a proffer pertaining to those standards. But the applicant may also wish to reconsider the conditions of approval associated with landscaping and buffering as included in Ordinance 130611-7A. The second proffer pertains to generalized development plan and elevations. The property will be developed in general accordance with the general development plan submitted with this proffer application. The county and the applicant further agree that all parcel lines, parcel sizes, building envelopes, building sizes, public road locations, private driveway, parking areas, and travel way locations, utility locations, stormwater management facilities, and dimensions of undeveloped areas shown on the general development plan may be amended or adjusted by the applicant prior to final plat or site plan approval to fulfill requirements of final engineering and design or compliance with state agency regulations, including but not limited to VDOT, DEQ, et cetera, and compliance with the requirements of the county's development regulations. The staff comment, this proffer is consistent with the stated intent of the PDM district to prevent flexibility. All pertinent regulations enforced by reviewing agencies and the county will be applied, including PDM district regulations pertaining to major and minor revisions of the approved PDM development plan. The third item refers to cash proffers. The applicant proffers cash monetary contributions to the county to be directed towards the construction, upgrade, improvement, or enhancement of Orange County public safety systems, equipment, resources, or facilities. These contributions will amount to a total of $300,000. The purpose of the proffer is to mitigate the increased public safety costs that will be incurred by the county as a direct result of the project's commercial and residential development. These contributions will be paid to the county once 75% of the approved residential townhomes, or 173 units, have attained final occupancy permits. If the proffered cash payment is not used for the aforementioned purposes, said payment shall be transferred to the Orange County Public School account to be used for upgrades and improvements in the Orange County public education system. And I had no particular comment on that proffer. The next proffer pertains to the Germanna Wilderness Area Plan. The project will be generally developed in accordance with the Germanna Wilderness Area Plan, which was incorporated by the county as part of the county's comprehensive plan on July 14, 2015. Staff comment, as previously noted, the GWAP itself does not set forth particular design guidelines and standards, but this proffer offers affirmation that the applicant will be guided by the principles, goals, and objectives articulated in the GWAP. The final proffer pertains to the Virginia Department of Transportation. And I've set forth the use that the wording that was in the proffer statement, there may be a word or two missing, but as it was set forth, it reads, any future commercial use that is proposed, a traffic analysis will be performed at construction plan phase of such proposed commercial use for VDOT's approval. And is the understanding of staff that VDOT has approved this approach to updating the traffic impact analysis for the proposed project. And I did have an additional staff comment. It is recommended that conditions or proffers be considered that will require a 35-foot riparian buffer adjacent to all defined stream channels for both perennial and intermittent channels, as well as for wetland areas, and that will require a current wetlands delineation prior to any land disturbing activity or issuance of any zoning permits. And I did rely on the comments from Culpeper Soil and Water Conservation to guide that language, as well as one of the conditions of the 2013 approval of this project. And that's all that I have, Mr. Chairman.
Is there any questions for Mr. Thornton of the county?
Yes, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Capel,
First
go
of
ahead.
all, yeah, thank you. First of all, this is the first PDM that we've looked at, that's coming in through the GWAP. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. This is something new to us. I'm not sure we know exactly what we're to be looking at. And I know we're not going to figure that all out right now. So I think we all need to kind of maybe make sure we review the GWAP guidance and the standards that are there and all that, perhaps before the next meeting. One thing I don't understand, I don't understand how these are, the cash is obviously a proffer, but how is that the applicant agrees that the applicant can change plot lines as needed? How is that a proffer? So the generalized development plan, it says that the county and the applicant agree that all parcel lines, et cetera, may be amended or adjusted by the applicant prior to final plat or site plan approval. How is that a proffer? That sounds like something to them. That's not a proffer to the county, right?
Well, Well, I agree. It would be something that would benefit them. I think that is intended to indicate that the features that are shown on the generalized development plan are to an extent generalized.
Malleable. Well, no, I got it. It's basically
Have to be.
saying, yeah, what we have on paper, we can change. And I don't see any approval process. So I'm just, all I'm commenting on, and we've had this before, is, these don't seem like proffers to me. The cash obviously is a proffer. And it could be a legal thing, but I don't understand how we as the county should view allowing them, and I don't mean that negatively to the applicants. I don't mean that like, us versus them, but just in general, I don't understand how that's a proffer. I don't really understand how the first bullet is a proffer either. Because all that again really isn't giving anything to the county. It's just the applicant kind of dictating that they want flexibility, and any other proffers previously are null and void. I also don't understand why it's a proffer that they'll develop generally to the GWAP. I mean, that's not a proffer. That's a requirement.
Yeah, and so these are maybe more appropriately, some of them consider conditions as opposed to actual proffers.
Well, the only reason I'm bringing it up, Ms. Thornton, is it was started off by saying there were several proffers, right? And so there really aren't. There's a $300,000 cash proffer, which I'm not saying is bad, and that they'll do a traffic analysis before construction, but also that ties in with them being able to change the parcel lines, public road locations, and all that. So I only see one proffer here, is my point. And again, I'm not commenting on whether it's a great proffer or not a great proffer, but I really don't like things that are supposed to happen, things that aren't really a benefit to the county. I don't like them being advertised as proffers, because a proffer implies that the applicant is doing something above and beyond what is required. And so that's the only question I have. And then I'm not super clear on, I don't understand how this works, honestly. That they're going to present a plan, we're going to approve a plan, and then they're offering us the proffer that they can basically change the plan down the road. And then I'm wondering, so what did we really approve then, and who looks at those changes? So that's all I have.
Mr. Yancey, you have any questions?
I don't have any questions, Chairman Brooks. I would like to say that Mr. Hutchison and I were both members of the GWAP committee when the GWAP was being studied and formulated and planned. And basically the planned mixed development area was something that was predicated on the thought process that the whole GWAP concept was that it was a place to live, work, play, and shop all in one, with certain amenities required in terms of bike lanes or bike paths and sidewalks and certain types of landscaping and design, so that you would have a uniformity of look and appearance throughout the GWAP area. And Mr. Hutchison may want to elaborate a little bit more on that.
I agree with that. That's exactly right. It also included discussions on signage and stuff, so that the whole concept was that it fit agronomically into the landscape, including bordering, etc. So there's a full concept that's in the comp plan as an attachment under GWAP for the multi-use with all the guidelines specified for the planned GWAP area. I had one other comment, and that is that they went into some discussion on cultural areas and didn't come up with any significant finding. As we know, that area is loaded with cultural areas. And if I'm correct, George, you correct me, Zan Nelson did a study, which was one of the efforts under the GWAP area, the comp plan, that laid out a whole list of potential cultural areas that they may want to resource.
That is also correct. But as a note to other members of the Planning Commission, one of the things we found out doing that research process, the authentication and verification of whether it is historical or not by the Virginia Historical Society is not an exact science.
Mrs. Elmaker, do you have any comments or questions?
Because I haven't been here very long, I was confused on that mixed use. So I don't know if this is appropriate time to talk about that, or just in between the next meeting, I could get with Sandra and just ask more questions. Because it seems like so many different things going on, hotels and banks and stores and residential. And so it just doesn't, to me, it doesn't seem to all go together the way that it is. So I'd just like to know more about what the 50-year vision is supposed to be.
Julie, if I can make a suggestion, on the website, there is the GWAP plan, which is part of the comp plan. And attached to that is segments that include 3 separate segments of guidelines for which include a mixed use element that was approved by the board for the county. You can go and read that whole thing and it'll help you understand what the concept is.
Okay, I appreciate that. And my other thing is I was looking in here and it sounded like they were going to be focused on recreation, but I saw that there were only, I guess, two different type of parks for recreation, and maybe they were going to piggyback off of the golf courses being close by or something, but I didn't see bike lanes, or there was like a limited sidewalk. So I was just kind of curious if I was missing something there.
Julie,
When the applicant comes forward, those are some of the things that we can focus in on if you'd like, because they would be the best to give us an explanation of their thought process there, and what they would change, if anything, to accommodate those questions.
Mr. Chairman, this is George Yancey again. Just to add edification a little bit further, there is a designated area, and I think Mr. Hutchinson will confirm, along the Rapidan River that basically is designated for a rec type of facility. There are bike paths, trail paths, and also walkways planned within the development. The real purpose of the PDM is basically so that people can walk from home to shop or walk or to work if they're benefited by it. So it's basically a self-enclosed composite development whereby, again, you live, work, and play and reside there as well.
Is there any other questions, comments from any other commissioners before I make a comment or have a couple questions?
Mr. Chairman, just
Yes, sir.
Jason Capel. So I'm again, I know this is our first one, right? So I'm just curious, down the road. So this, the idea is, if this were to be approved, it'd be a somewhat flexible plan that gives some latitude, but who monitors? Like you mentioned this, there's a space for a building. Well, so for a recreation building, I mean, where is it instantiated that will definitely be built someday? How do we know that we don't just end up with all these houses and condos and none of the other things?
Again, I hate to be dominating here, but this is George Yancey, District 2. If my memory serves me correctly, the county administrator and the planning director would be ultimately responsible for reviewing the plans and also making sure they're in compliance with the GWAP documentation that's already of record.
That is correct.
Okay, so given our current staffing, are we thinking we'll have enough people, resources to review this as it moves along?
Well, I can assure you our staff is going to increase. I don't know that at that point we will have enough either, but our staff is going to increase drastically. And something is going to have to monitor this. Something's going to have to trigger someone going down there and reviewing and things like that. And that may be something we want to look at internally to make sure we get that done, not just for this presentational applicant, but for all of them.
Well, and
So
if I
while
could
I'm
just
speaking, I
add
do
that-
have a question.
I'm sorry, I was just gonna say, I think for any of these projects as phases of development, as plans are submitted for various phases of development, whoever it is that's doing the plan review will need to evaluate those plans, those site plans, in light of the approved development plan, whatever's approved with the rezoning application. I do think that it was contemplated that the plans coming forward would be somewhat more detailed and specific than this one is. Since I mean, as I had mentioned in the staff report, I know, and I'm sure Mr. Marcantoni and or Mr. Dudley will comment on this. They were, part of their interest, was to be allowed some flexibility as they went forward. I think that part of the decision that has to be made at this point is how much flexibility should be allowed in the absence of more specific guidelines that they want to suggest for consideration at this point.
Well, we may at the time that they come forward, ask them to be more specific and put some timelines in there. But before they come forward, the age of the data that's in this application is 10 years old. Do you have any problem with that as a county? I mean, how's that going to affect us looking at actually what impact it does have on the county? Even the tax data and the revenue data is a little bit dated. Does that concern you as the one who would look over it now?
I think that, the tax data would not, concern me in evaluating a site plan. I agree that it doesn't give you the most accurate picture at this point of what sort of fiscal impacts the county might anticipate. I think that in this case, because this particular development was included very specifically in the GWAP sub area plan, that I mean, just honestly, I think I didn't evaluate it quite as
Well,
thoroughly as a new application might be
could have.
evaluated.
Right, right. I'm not challenging that. I guess where I'm going to with this, and I'm sure the applicant is listening, so I want to make this real plain, is that our school dynamics right now are different than they would have been so many years ago, and certainly 18 months ago, or even 6 months ago. So the best use of space could be, and I'm using an example here, it could be a broadband hub or internet hub, something so that it will facilitate times such as this. And also the modern day workforce, based on an article I read, is going to keep most employees at home now and not put them in brick and mortar, just because they realize that it's just as effective and certainly costs. So you look at things like, what's our internet speed down there? What can we handle? What's our broadband speed? Those type of things may be there. The other thing I want to talk about before we get too far with them, this cash offer, I think y'all can take off the table. I don't know, and Eric is listening, and he and I had a discussion about it, but the legal standing of that is probably mute. We really got to watch, and I'm not trying to hide this. We've got to watch how we say we want $300,000 from someone, or even though they profited. I think we're getting into a category now. Now, when they did this, cash proffers, all kind of proffers were appropriate. That law has since changed. So I'm gonna defer now to Eric a little bit to educate all of us, the applicant and the commissioners, on his thought on this cash offer, irregardless of what we use it for.
Of course, could always.
Excuse me, before Eric, I will defer to Eric too, but I did just want to mention that I did contact the county attorney when I saw the cash proffer, because I had been under the impression that Orange did not accept cash proffers, and I was told that it could be considered.
And Sandra's correct. I'm sorry, Donald. The law on cash proffers is it's constantly changing, and it's highly complex. So whenever we see a cash proffer, it definitely does trigger alarm bells where we want to make sure that we're doing this right. But because the cash proffer has been voluntarily proffered, and as it turns out on further review of county and state law, that the county zoning ordinance does allow cash proffers. So my previous advice to you on that was incorrect. We can accept the proffer if it is voluntarily offered and not requested by us.
I guess that I'll move to the next question. I don't want to make it a real strong point, but just a point. Because they kept it in the application is okay. Is that what you're saying?
I'm sorry, Mr. Chairman, can you repeat that?
Because they kept the cash offer in the application when they resubmitted it, that makes it okay?
No, it's because of the fact that they have voluntarily proffered it, and because it's specifically attributable to a cost that needs to be offset by the development. So in this case, as I recall, the $300,000 cash proffer is specifically designed to offset the cost of public safety, which will be increased whenever you add people, whenever you add new residents to the county. You're going to have more crime in the county, and the cost of public safety is going to increase. So it's designed to offset a very real cost to the county government that will be created by this. So as long as they are offering it voluntarily, as long as we're not the ones asking for it, which we're not. No one in county government has asked for it or requested it. It's appropriate and it's acceptable for us to consider it.
If there are no other questions or comments from commissioners, we'll have the applicant come forward and
Mr.
make their,
Chairman,
yes,
I'd like to make one other comment if I may, and it goes
please.
back to Mr. Capel's comment at the beginning that this is the first PDM that we've looked at. And that's significant. It's going to set a precedent for the GWAP area, whatever we do. And it's been 2 years since we held a town hall meeting on the GWAP area, which at that time did not include anything from Signature Station. And I might suggest that we consider a town hall meeting concerning this effort, similar to the successful one we did in Barbersville for the district.
I don't have a problem with that, but how are we going to accomplish that in these situations, in this environment? And Barbersville was well attended. We weren't 6 feet apart. We weren't wearing masks. I mean, that's an excellent idea. I love those things, but I don't think I can do it in this environment. I'm not even able to hold a commission meeting in person yet. So how would I do that? Tell me, could you think about doing it by Zoom, or what are you suggesting?
Oh, we do it virtually.
Okay.
I don't have a good answer for you, but the significance of this PDM for the GWAP area and for the county, particularly the Route 3 corridor portion of the county and the 2,700 other acres in the King property, from the comp plan standpoint, I think is very important. And somehow we need to look at a town hall concept for the community. I don't know if the other commissioners feel the same way, but.
Well, we're doing that kind of sort of because we're holding this meeting virtual, and they're certainly welcome to chime in and have their comments. Point well taken. I hear you. Let me give some thought to that. I'll talk with the county, but let me bring the applicant on now. Whoever's going to present for the applicant, please state your name slowly, clearly, and what affiliation you have with the application, and make a presentation. And then we would ask you to stand by for questions. We ask that your presentation not be much more than 15, 20 minutes. We received an extensive amount of material on this, and we have done our due diligence of reading it. So then I also would ask, you've heard some of the comments and questions from the different commissioners. Somewhere in your presentation, try to get some answers to the commissioners. Applicant, come forward, please.
Good evening. My name's John Marcantoni, along with Bob Dudley. He shows up as Bob's iPad. We're with Signature Series Development, and we are bringing back Signature Station for another rezoning. I'll go forward with my presentation. Is that okay, Mr. Brooks?
Go forward, please.
We were approved in our previous rezoning 7 years ago, allowing for commercial and residential development, and are requesting to change the zoning to planned development for mixed use, PDM. At that time, and unbeknownst to us, the commercial real estate market was beginning a drastic change from traditional brick and mortar stores to online marketplaces. New big box stores were becoming a thing of the past. In our prior rezoning, our proffers contained phasing requirements in which a large proportion of the commercial component had to occur prior to any other development feature, so we have been unable to move forward. We diligently marketed this property for commercial development for 7 years without success. So approximately 2 years ago, we started discussions with the county on how to remove these phasing requirements and adjust to the new market conditions. During this time, we've been paying commercial and residential taxes on the property, which have been quite substantial. As you know, the Germanna Wilderness Plan, GWAP, was adopted by the county in which our development was part of Sub-Area 1 Spotswood area. Now with the GWAP in place, there are ordinances that will accommodate and provide guidance for our revised development plans. These revisions would enhance the architectural, environmental, residential, commercial, and traffic features of the project. We've greatly reduced the previous large-scale commercial down to uses that we anticipate will consist of a number of multiple pad sites that may include restaurants, banks, hotel, apartments, small retail, etc., as the market demands. This will also enable us to work around the small area of wetlands, which we now plan on preserving and protecting. Our traffic plan will utilize traffic circles for movements to all areas of the property. Our residential portion has been expanded to include VDOT roadways, which is not common for townhome clusters. We have expanded the roadways and added alleys, driveways for our off-street parking to accommodate VDOT's requirements for public roadways. This will result in wide, unobstructed throughways for daily traffic as well as for safety vehicles. The density of the townhomes remained at 230 units, along with the possibility of adding 100 more apartment units in our commercial area. We proffered that all new development will be in accordance with all facets of the GWAP plan, providing the aesthetics, oversight, and traffic planning as the county now requires. Our revised signature station with the incorporation of the GWAP has resulted in a more current plan that allows for easy access for both vehicles and pedestrians, protection of environmentally sensitive areas, attractive housing types, and commercial entities that will fit and thrive in our county. With our rezoning package, we have included proffers that ensure that development is constructed in accordance with the GWAP, all new proposed commercial traffic impacts to be analyzed and addressed, and a cash proffer of $300,000 to be directed towards public safety or to the county's school system. That's essentially our proposal up front. As far as, if you'd like, I can answer some of the questions you previously had, if that's appropriate.
Thank you, sir. We appreciate that. We're going to start with each commissioner. We're going to start with District 5 and work in reverse order. For any questions or comments he may have to you, we would ask that if you don't have the answer, the logical thing to do is tell us you'll get back to us, but we certainly would want you to try to iron out a couple of things for us. Mr. Hutchinson, we're going to start with you, District 5.
I guess the first thing that when are you going to plan on submitting a site plan?
Well, it's really going to be based on demand at this point, because we were unable to start anything because we were unable to find a commercial entity large enough to begin our commercial component and or the residential component. So if we do gain approval in the next few months, a plan would start to be submitted probably middle of next year, hopefully.
Have you had any contact with retail potentially to go into this mixed use area?
Yes, we're getting some interest from smaller commercial entities, gas station type convenience stores, some restaurants, etc.
I know you mentioned a hotel in there. What's going on with that?
We added the hotel in there from the county's economic studies that were provided previously this year. And we figured we'd add that use in there if there was a demand. And really that was coming from the Orange County's economic development study. We have not had any calls or interest from hotels at this point, but they thought it was appropriate in this end of the area for the the GWAP.
Have you had any discussions or with Somerset at all, the community?
We have. I was a resident previously. I just got transferred for work, so I've been a resident for Orange County for 17 years, and it was pretty openly known of what was happening, of what we were planning to start there. But like I said in my presentation, the commercial large box stores just aren't happening anymore. And that was really the basis for a lot of our project going forward and progressing.
You're going to have some significant sewage and water issues to deal with on this, which I assume from new pumping stations to towers, water towers, et cetera. Have you dealt with that issue at all?
Yes, we've met with Lynn Clements with RSA multiple times. We're aware of the upgrades that would be required. The storage tower isn't as large as it sounds like. It's more of a storage facility for the townhomes, more for safety concerns. But we're well aware of what has to be done to accommodate the water and sewer, as they are saying that the capacity is available, and as well as the water, as far as sewer and water.
Have you contacted the county yet on its broadband plan?
We have not.
I strongly suggest you do that because the process is well underway. And I would assume that broadband would be high-speed internet would be a key issue for the community.
High-speed internet is already available in that location.
Through who, do you know?
Comcast.
I'm sorry.
Comcast.
Is that you talking high speed on just plain cable, or are you talking about fiber optics?
Cable.
Okay, yeah.
Currently supplied in that area.
Yeah, the county is placing is got a major program going in with high speed broadband that brings fiber optic speed into the county, and it's going to go right along Route 3. You might want to contact the county. It's also part of the comp plan.
Absolutely.
That's all I have.
Thank you. District 4, Ms. Zellmaker, do you have any questions of the applicant?
Yeah, I wanted to ask about your plan for recreation for that area. And I saw a hotel and bank. I didn't see like a gym or YMCA or something that would be great for this area. So just kind of curious about your thoughts there.
Right now, as shown, is what's required in the GWAP. So the playgrounds and the walking trails and the sidewalks, that's really per the guidelines. We anticipate it's going to be mostly more natural areas than a large shopping center, essentially. But as far as gyms or any other type of business coming in, that would be based on market demand.
And so it's not like an employer or something that could create jobs in that area.
We are welcome if anybody wants to locate, and we will market to gyms or any type of recreational business that would be looking to locate there. Absolutely.
And I saw that there was going to be another traffic light or traffic stop off of 3.
No, ma'am. There is no other traffic light that VDOT is requesting. There's some improvements that may include turning lanes and acceleration lanes, and also turning lanes on Route 708 as well, Somerset Ridge Road.
Okay. Yeah, that's all my questions for him at this time.
Thank you. I have one question and one comment, if you could comment on the comment. The question, have you spoken with our economic development person in the last 90 days?
We have not. Well, actually, no, not in the last 90 days due to the pandemic. We really haven't met with too many people, obviously, but we've been in contact with the Economic Development Office for the last 15 years on this project.
I understand that part. I just think if you get an opportunity to call the county's economic developer, you'd be surprised how he may be able to help. And that's all I'll say with that.
The last
second,
meeting, I'm sorry.
pardon?
The last meeting we had with the county, the economic development group was involved, and they had indicated about the, the possibility of multiple business looking to, come to Orange, hopefully. But we'll definitely be in contact with them to help us bring those businesses in.
The other thing is the information that you have, while it's useful and it's a great detail, it's a little dated. I would, if without going through too much work, an improvement I would see is that just upgrade those charts of what your expectations are. Should not be too hard to do, so that we got some real numbers on what's going to work. And then I have no other questions at this time. You can comment on that data if you like.
Understood. When we first started the process back in 2018, we met with Brian Dave. We met with multiple board members to discuss how to handle bringing the project back or making some revisions to make it more market directive. The discussions basically included, and that's why I included not necessarily updating all these plans, because it was more or less a request by the county to bring we have an approved project as we stand. Really, this was due to a market-driven issues that we were unable to bring in the commercial. So we met with Sandra and Brian David at the time to develop a plan to come back and make this project more compliant with GWAP. I mean, we were more or less compliant with GWAP as it stands, as we're part of the GWAP now. This was a request by the board, some of the board members, to bring this back to a rezoning so we can remove some of those proffer phasing requirements and other outdated proffers that were on there, and some of the VDOT requirements, that this would more or less be acceptable going forward as the new GWAP plan was adopted and being the first PDM going through the county.
Yeah, okay. Thank you so much. District 2, Mr. Yancey.
I thank you, Chairman Brooks. If I recall from memory, the original proffer of $300,000 was, I think, in consideration of the county thinking of a satellite sheriff's office station area in the local Lake of the Woods GWAP area. And I believe that was the premises of that original proffer. Would you have a problem tonight stating voluntarily that that cash proffer is not linked or subject to any considerations or requirements of the County of Orange?
No, we kept it under public safety or schools as we previously submitted, but due to the pandemic, we really haven't been able to have multiple conversations with many people. Decide, if the county has a need for in other areas, we'd be open to giving that authority to the county to whatever need was necessary.
I have no further questions, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Capel, District 1.
Yes, Mr. Marcantoni, thanks for joining us and being here. Appreciate it.
Thanks for allowing us.
So in this original financial impact statement, you've got some square feet of commercial space being proposed. How do you view that changing in this new plan?
No, it's going to be much smaller. It's not going to be 220,000 square feet of shopping center or big box store. We anticipate it to be multiple pad sites, like for the uses that we listed. It'll be a much smaller commercial area. I mean, it's our commercial component, 30 acres essentially, which will be planned to include multiple pad sites. And that will be determined by the demand or what the market calls for. Obviously, we don't want to do it one here, one there. We do want to sort of plan on based on that demand coming in, as we are getting some interest from, like, say, a Royal Farm, something of that type. But we had a lot of response from most of the commercial entities that we talked to. They didn't see houses going up, and without houses, the commercial didn't want to come. And that was pretty much the comment we received across the board for the last 7 years.
So, okay. So you're still talking 230 townhomes and potentially 100 condominiums or apartments, whatever you want to call them. And I do know there's a difference, but however that's going to work out. So what you're saying is that if there were 230 townhomes there, that you could fill all the pads, the commercial pads?
We feel we'd be much more successful bringing in that commercial. That's correct.
Yeah. Okay. All right. I mean, it's great that you have the financial thing in here. The numbers are way off. I mean, the commercial is by far the largest revenue for the county. And I might quibble over your assertion that potentially 330 residential units would result in a net gain to the county. But that's a different subject. But clearly the financial calculus changes a lot without the commercial development. And so you've reduced the commercial substantially. I think those are the words you used. And so you tried to market this. Previously, the phases required that you do the commercial first before the residential. Is that the right? Yeah, okay. And so you're saying that you had problems finding the commercial customers, and therefore you couldn't build the residential. Is that kind of a summary?
Yes.
Okay, so now you want to do this PDM, and you're saying that if you build the residential, you'll be able to build some smaller portion of commercial if you can do the residential first.
Absolutely. Mr. Capel, we've had smaller commercial entities that wanted to come build on the property, but because we had such a large percentage of square footage that we had to build to start anything in the as far as the residential was concerned, it couldn't be done for us financially.
Yeah. No, listen, I'm not, I understand I understand your reasoning here. As a taxpayer, in the county as you were.
We still are.
Well, okay, so you own the land, so you're paying the taxes. Got it. So surely you can understand the concern of getting all the residential and none of the commercial, because to me that's a net loss for the county. So is there any way to have a little more certainty that there will be something other than residential there, other than just sort of the whim of the market?
I'm not sure how I could give you a guarantee. I mean, that's our intent.
Okay. And then one last question. I'm just curious. I saw something in here. So how many students, like you've been in construction for a fairly long time?
30 years.
Yeah. Okay. So when you build a townhouse development, how many kids per townhouse? As your financial analysis says that we should expect 0.18 students per townhouse. So basically every 10 townhomes has a student. That seems pretty low to me.
That came from our financial experts.
Okay. I mean, I don't know how the commission.
Based on historical data.
Okay. Well, I mean, that's effectively how the residential ends up with a net surplus. I mean, as we all know, the cost to schools are, that's probably the bigger cost. And so 0.18 students per unit doesn't, again, Mr. Marcantoni, I got it. You got it from your financial person. So no worries, but that seems pretty low to me.
Well,
So it's fine. I mean, maybe there's some backing data, but just to the commission, to my fellow commission members, this financial assessment, and Ms. Thornton, you read this into the record as part of the report. This financial assessment is not correct at this moment. Just based on the change in the square footage of commercial, if nothing else. So I just wanted to be noted that that needs to be looked at. What the true financial impact. Not to mention that this was done in 2011. And again, Mr. Marcantoni, I'm not questioning what you've presented. You've obviously hired a consultant here, so I'm not pinging you for this, but I'd like to see the data on the 0.18 students per.
Just to go back to the data we presented back then, I know you probably won't agree with it, but the residential did pay for itself. And if you don't believe that, that's, I understand that's your opinion, but we're also showing that proffer to make up if that was the case.
I understand. I'm not going to quibble over it, but I've not been in a county that developed their way into lower taxes for their citizens. But I understand your point. That's all I have, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, sir. Ms. Thornton, do you have anything? Sandra? Maybe not. Mr. Lansing, anything?
All right. I'm sorry, I was late. I don't have anything additional at this time.
Okay. Mr. Lansing, anything?
No, thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. Then I think what's appropriate for us to do is to put this on hold until we hear our public comments, then come back and make our decision, hopefully at the October meeting. Is that correct? Second October meeting, is that correct?
Yeah, yes, sir.
Okay, and do we need official motion, Mr. Lansing, to do that? Or is that just recognized by the continuity of government proclamation?
The continuity government ordinance has a number of different paths that we can pursue. So if what we want to do is hold the public hearing out to receive written comments, then we need a motion for that.
Okay, so I solicit a motion for that, please.
So, Mr. Chairman, the motion is what, to open the public hearing to solicit comments until the date of 9 October?
Right.
Okay, I will make that motion.
Is there a second?
I'll second it. District 5.
District 1 makes the motion. This is 5 seconds it. All in favor, say aye.
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 Chair votes aye. All opposed? Motion carried.
Hey, Mr. Chairman,
Yes,
I'll wait for you to return, sir.
I'm sorry.
It's all right.
House phone is ringing. Nothing wants to work right. Okay, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Yes, sir. Kind of related, I mean, not related specifically to signature series, but we kind of asked these questions when the GWAP was put into place. Like, I mean, do we want to have any discussion at the next meeting about how this actually works? I mean, we're getting ready to make a recommendation, and it just seems like
we certainly do. We have the opportunity, as if we were in person, to hear the applicant, hear the county, hear the applicant, hear the public comment, and then comment again, and then make our vote.
No, I mean about how. I'm sorry, Mr. Chairman. I'm talking about how this PDM process works. I mean, this reminds me a little bit of the RV park where we're just kind of approving bubbles. You know, hey, here's an area, and we're going to leave it up to someone in the future the developer in concert with staff who we know are chronically overworked, and you know, the public's going to end up with some project that benefits everyone. And you know, at some point I had heard that, you know, there might be some engineering consultants brought in. I maybe heard Mr. White say that might help with the reviews. But I don't quite understand how this whole process works. So it's like, we've got this very sort of flexible plan before us. And so we make let's just say we make a recommendation to approve. Not tipping my hand at all, Mr. Marcantoni, I still see you there, but I'm just saying, just for the sake of argument, let's say we make a recommendation to approve and it goes to the board, and the board says, yay, verily, and off we go. And I don't feel like we have any real idea what happens after that, as far as approvals, as far as plans, like who arbitrates, who decides all that stuff. And
let's do this, Mr. Capel. Let's have a conference call with with the county attorney, and let between now and then, and see what guidelines you want to put in place, and we may need to make some recommendations to the county.
Yeah, that makes sense, Mr. Brooks, and maybe something published to the public so they understand
Right.
what we're doing
Right.
here.
So, but I think,
Yes, sir.
at this point, let's just count on a conference call with the county attorney, you, I, and him, and then we'll hash it out, and we'll have legal guidance and commissioner guidance, and we'll go from there. Will that satisfy for now?
Mr. Chairman?
Mr. Langston, are you favorable for that?
Yes, I'm favorable to that.
Okay, thank you. All right.
Mr. Chairman, this is George Yancey.
Yes, sir.
I highly recommend, Mr. Hutchison and I had the advantage of being on the GWAP planning group, and some of you did not have the opportunity. There was a bus trip that multiple county individuals, including the county administrator, several board of supervisors members, and unfortunately I had a conflict that day and could not attend. But they visited, I think, Mr. Hutchinson, correct me, there was either 4 or 5 different facilities.
5.
You know, through the state, one of which was the Newtown development in Williamsburg, which is the concept, the plan development mixed is predicated on. And this is not to alarm anybody, but it also serves somewhat as a very, very mini Reston Town Center type of concept. And
I was privileged, Mr. Yancey, to accompany them on that trip. That was a very useful trip as we looked at the beginning stages of GWAP. It's a useful trip even now. I contemplate maybe sometimes we ought to go back and do something like that, because you were able to see what was on paper, for lack of a better word, to make it work out. So yeah, I think that's something that we can talk about too. If you or Mr. Hutchison want to be on that conference call, I will bow out. We just cannot have 3 people because it becomes a meeting.
I think it's important that you be on that meeting as the chairman.
right, and I've got a time element, so you know I defer to you, sir.
Okay, all right, well then we'll let it stay as stands, and your points will take it. And you know, once we get it together, we're going to present it to the commission as a guideline anyway. All right, so is everybody ready to move to the, I'll tell you what we're going to do. We're going to take a 10-minute break before we go to the next one, because we've been going for about an hour and a half. And so let's take a 10-minute break. Let's make it an 8-minute break. 8-minute break, and we'll come back and finish up. All right, folks, is everybody ready? We got everybody back? Nobody's saying anything. I see a few.
It's raining here.
I will be back. I will be
All
back.
right. Mr. Yancey, Mrs. Zellmaker? Mr. Yancey? Ms. Zellmaker? Mr. Yancey, can you hear me? All right, Mrs. Zellmaker, are you there? Can't hear you. Julie?
She's muted.
Okay. So it looks like we've got everybody back. We would ask Mrs. Thornton to go ahead with the, get prepared, go ahead and be prepared to give the county's comments. We're moving to rezoning 20-02 Storeland LLC has applied to rezone tax map parcel 23-1 through 2, E, F, and H from limited commercial to C2 general commercial in order to develop a self-storage facility. Also, it should be a separate hearing, but it is SUP by the same folks to construct and operate a self-storage for a special use permit. So we have to rezone it, then they're asking for a special use permit. We will go to the rezone first. Mrs. Thornton, if you're ready, proceed, please. You're muted. Sandra, you're muted.
Sorry.
There you go.
Sorry about that. Yeah. And I just wanted to double check with Mr. Lansing before we start. I believe that you can conduct these public hearings concurrently. I wrote one staff report for both matters. I believe the hearings can be conducted concurrently, but you will need separate, when it gets to the point of making motions, you would need to take action separately on the two petitions.
That's
That's
right.
right. That's right.
So you're opening both public hearings at this point?
I'm opening both public hearings. I need you to state the October or whatever deadline you putting on these and then go forward.
Okay. The deadline for public comment on these matters is also 5 p.m. on Friday, October 9th, for written public comments, and the comments would be limited to 1 page or 500 words per person. And again, that's 5 p.m. on Friday, October 9th for the October 15 Planning Commission meeting. And they'll be taken up at that point in time. The matter, these matters that are before you now also represent petitions for a project that was previously approved in April of 2014. At that time, the rezoning portion of the the presentation was to rezone the three parcels, tax map number 20 through 2312E, 2312F, and 2312H, which total of 10.882 acres. In the earlier consideration, the parcels were zoned agricultural, and the request was to rezone to C2, commercial or general commercial. During the course of those proceedings, the petition was revised to request rezoning from agricultural to limited commercial C1. Again, in order to develop a mini storage facility. Both the C1 rezoning as well as the special use permit application were approved. But the special use permit expired without pursuit of the project on the part of the applicant. At some point after those approvals were made, the zoning ordinance was changed such that mini storage units were not permitted in the C1 district if they were allowed in another district. And at that point, self-storage units were included as a special use in the C2 district. So now, in order to pursue or to try to pursue the mini storage development at this point, the parcel does need to be, or the parcels need to be rezoned from limited commercial to general commercial. So I included in the agenda package the staff report on the prior matters, rezoning 1302 and special use permit 1304, and then have presented updates to that prior report. The conditions in the vicinity remain basically the same as far as the zoning in the area of the parcel, the activities in that area. The parcel is adjacent to Lake of the Woods. There is agriculturally zoned land on either side of the parcel, east and west. There are parcels zoned commercial or C2, general commercial, in close proximity to the subject parcels. The subject parcels are now included in the Germanna Wilderness Area Plan, sub-area 7, South Wilderness. And in the GWAP, the guidance for commercial development includes these parcels in an area slated for tourism / visitor-focused commercial neighborhood scale offices and professional services. Concerning community input, the public hearing notice was advertised in the Freelance Star on September 17 and 24, and in the Orange County Review on September 24th. Notices to adjacent property owners were mailed on September 21st. Signs were placed on the subject parcels on September 17th, and another site visit was conducted on September 22nd. And at the time of this, the writing of the staff report, Tracy has fielded quite a few calls from adjacent property owners, primarily residents of Lake of the Woods. Comments from the Application Review Committee were solicited via emails on July 20th and September 10. The Rapidan Service Authority offered no comment since the proposed facility would be served by private water and sewer. We did receive comments from the Virginia Department of Transportation, as well as a letter from the Culpeper Soil and Water Conservation District. And some of the comments from those agencies have been included in conditions that staff will propose relative to potential approval of a special use permit for this project. And I would just note that none of the reviewing agencies offered any differing comments on the two applications, the rezoning and the special use permit, but they indicated that their comments for both aspects of the proposal remain the same. I did set forth just for informational purposes, and I don't know that I need to read through all of it. I did set forth the by right uses and the special uses in the C1 district and the C2 district for your information. As you would expect, I mean, the uses that are allowed in the C2 district are somewhat more intense than those allowed in the C1 district. As I noted, there are other properties in close proximity to the subject parcels that are currently zoned C2. Concerning perhaps some additional thoughts on threats to public health, safety, and welfare. I did want to address lighting concerns. Exterior lighting standards were adopted by the county on May 8th, 2018, that are intended, among other things, to limit light trespass on adjacent parcels and to prevent hazards to drivers on the adjacent roadways. So that is maybe an update to some of the concerns related to the proposal that were mentioned in 2014. One of the concerns previously and at this time would be buffering around the proposal. Section 70-484 in the C2 district regulations require a minimum 50-foot side or rear yard setback adjacent to residential or agricultural districts. And the language regarding fencing and or landscaping to screen the adjacent use from adverse impacts is I think, somewhat general, you might say. It says the suitability of fencing or landscaping is to be reviewed and approved as part of the site plan review process. However, in this case, staff does recommend a condition as part of any approval that will require a natural treed buffer of 50 feet, as was stipulated in the prior approval of SUP 13-04. I did want to also provide some additional comments on impacts on transportation infrastructure. The potential impacts of the proposed use on Route 20 can't be fully determined until trip generation numbers and a turn lane warrant analysis are completed for review by VDOT. So accordingly, provision of this information should be a condition of special use permit approval. In addition, VDOT has noted that landscaping for the site should not impair site distance from the commercial entrance to the property. So I have also proposed conditions that you might consider in formulating your recommendation to the board. And of course, you may accept, reject, or amend the conditions put forth by staff. The controlling, I'm sorry.
Go ahead. I thought you were finished.
Well, I can review the proposed conditions at this point, or wait until after the you hear from the applicant if you'd like to do it that
No,
way.
go ahead and conclude.
Okay. Well, I would propose that the controlling documents shall be the conditions set forth herein and the documents submitted with the application. Number 2, compliance, use, and development of the subject property shall be in substantial conformance with these conditions. The zoning administrator shall determine substantial conformance. The property owner shall be responsible for obtaining all required site plan approvals, building permits, health permits, VDOT permits, zoning permits, and erosion and sediment control permits. The property owner shall be responsible for complying with all local, state, and federal laws and regulations as may be applicable to the business development and operation. Use number 3, uses. This special use permit shall permit the operation of a self-storage facility as generally shown on the site plan and described in the application. Number 4, performance standards. Per recommendations by the Culpeper Soil and Water Conservation District in their comment letter dated September 14, 2020, a site plan in compliance with the erosion and sediment control and stormwater management law and regulations is required. A no disturbance riparian buffer setback shall be incorporated on the stream along the west property line. This setback should be measured from the top of stream bank and be at least 35 feet. Exceptions may be allowed for erosion control and stormwater management and utility crossings. Underground stormwater management practices are preferred to minimize the footprint of disturbance. The site drains into Lake of the Woods. Water quality protection is very important to the residents. Water quality treatment for the site development, as required by the Virginia Stormwater Management Law and Regulations, shall be satisfied on site. No off-site nutrient credit purchase should be allowed without due diligence to achieve treatment on site to the maximum extent feasible. A second performance standard, a minimum 50-foot natural treed buffer shall be maintained in the side and rear yards of the property. C, storage of motor vehicles, boats, recreational vehicles, motorcycles, etc. shall be screened so as to blend into the natural surroundings and not be visible from any public right-of-way. A parking concept plan for such vehicles shall be submitted as part of a site plan, and this area shall not be used to satisfy any other parking requirement. Number 5, per VDOT comments and email dated August 5th, 2020, additional information will be required prior to any site plan approval in order to assess whether turn lanes are warranted to preserve the functionality of Route 20 Constitution Highway. Trip generation at phase 1 and full build out using the ITE Trip Generation 10th edition must be provided, and a turn lane warrant analysis must be performed in order to determine whether left and or right turn lanes are required as part of the development. Number 6, landscaping shall not impair sight distance from the commercial entrance. Number 7, the required entrance radii shall be determined based upon the types of vehicles utilizing the entrance. And of course, during the site plan review process, VDOT would determine the adequacy of the entrance based on the usage. And that's all I have, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Any questions for the county personnel? We're going to start this time with District 1 and walk down in numerical order. Mr. Capel.
I have some questions for the applicant, but for Ms. Thornton,
Done.
I like the layout of the conditions. You did a nice job putting that together, so thank you for doing that. That's all I have, Mr. Chairman.
District 2, Mr. Yancey.
Yes, Ms. Thornton, did we look at seeing how many other facilities in the market area that had operating hours that is being proposed here? If my memory, the package indicate the operating hours are going to be 5 a.m. to 9 p.m.
I did not look at other businesses in the area, Mr. Yancey, to check on hours. I did not check that.
Okay.
But yeah, you're correct. It does say 5 to 9. Their
Right.
proposal. Mhm.
That seems pretty potentially problematic at 5 a.m. in the morning, especially on regular standard time. But that's another question for later. The last question has to do with lighting. Are we have any considerations, or do we have enough in our regs that we can minimize the impact of lighting, since it facility backs up to a residential area?
I believe so, Mr. Chairman, based on what was adopted in 2018. And I do think that the 50-foot vegetated buffer will be of some help in that regard as well.
That's all the question I have, Mr. Chairman.
The chairman has none. I'm sorry, Mrs. Zellmaker for District 4.
I don't have any questions for Sandra. Thank you.
Mr. Hutchinson, District 5.
Yeah, I'd like to add my comments on the hours proposed. Other storage areas that are along Route 3 and 20 do not back into residential areas. So you've got, other than the property goes right into the property line of Lake of the Woods. So you're going to have family homes with kids and stuff, sleeping and working and school and all that. So I would like to take a look at those hours in consideration for those families that live right behind the proposed storage facility. The second thing, did you address signage? If we're correct, there was a signage requirement under the original approval.
No,
It
I did
seems to
not.
me they've gone
yeah.
from a monument signage to a free swinging or freestanding.
Pylon sign is what they say, Hutch.
Yeah, that pylon stuff, yeah.
Any other questions?
Yeah.
Keep going. I'm sorry.
You mentioned that you had comments or phone calls from residents of Lake of the Woods. Can you give us some of the substance of those comments? Or
Perhaps Tracy can speak to some of that. It's my understanding that a number of the comments have had to do with buffering and traffic. But
Sandra, let me interrupt right here for a second, just so we can keep things in order. If she wants to prepare a report to give us when we hear the comments from everybody else, I think it might be more appropriate than stating some comments now and taking some comments later.
Yeah, I have no problem with that.
Just for clarity.
Yeah, if in fact we record those comments.
Right. And I'm going to ask that if she gets any more calls, that she would ask them to place them in writing and give them the opportunity to have them placed in official record. If we could, just so that we don't get out of whack.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, and those and the phone calls, I mean, those are, we don't consider those official comments, but I did just want to make you aware that there has been some significant interest on the part of the neighbors. So
sure, and I would like to see that report. That 9:08 a.m. Tuesday morning, Donald Brooks called in and said, blah 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 blah, and we can have that as our in the record so that they won't be left out. And then we would encourage them also to place it in writing. But if they didn't want, we would still have something. Ms. Hutchinson, you have anything else?
No, I just I comment on the conditions. They're good. I'd like to see something in there on the signage.
Okay. Is the applicant with us? Is the applicant with us?
Yes, I am.
Okay. Would you state your name and your affiliation with the company, please, and make any presentation that you want at this time? Try to limit it to 20 minutes.
Yes. My name is Steve McLean. with Storeland LLC. I'm working on this project with Kenny Dotson and Wells Wall of who are the current owners of the property. Like I say, in 2014, we were approved to have this project to be built, and because of certain issues, it wasn't built at that time. We're now prepared to go forward with the project, but have to change zoning from C1 to C2 as was stated, and get a special use permit. This property be, as I've stated, I've just built a property and sold it in Culpeper's Storeland self-storage. And if you visit that website, you can see the pictures of the types of buildings, the colors, ornamental fencing, landscaping. Everything is paved. It's done in a nice premium facility. It's not going to look like the ones that are on Route 3. They'll look much nicer than those. And we'll have LED lighting that's pointed down. It's meant for lower looms. And in a facility of this size, we only get 15 to 20 people a day, especially in phase 1. By the time we finish out the property, we maybe get 40 cars at the most a day. And at night, we only have a few, a lot less than what a subdivision would have, where you would have 20 or 30 homes in an area like this. You'd have a lot more lights all through the night than what self-storage will have. And with a 50-foot buffer, it stops most of your LED lighting. And if we can look at placing the buildings toward the back of the lot, possibly help stop some of those lights. But a lot of your people are commuters. They're coming through before they go to work, 5, 6 in the morning, and they come back at 6 or 7 or 8 at night. So usually I figured a lot of the other facilities don't even have gates, so that you have 24-hour access. But I don't feel that the number of people going in there at night after dark is anywhere near what a subdivision would be. And but people, they need to have access to when it's convenient for them to go in. And but we'd like to look at it and doing the stormwater management, and we've been talking with the DOT about possible turn lanes and everything else right now. So we're prepared to get going on it. If you would like us to build a nice looking facility that'll make that road look nice. We say we're well landscaped. That's most of our marketing is the landscaping. If you look at my other project, my last project, you can see we spent 3-4 times more money on a landscape than is necessary or was asked for by the town of Culpeper. And that should do it for me.
Is there any questions for the applicants?
You going to go by district?
I can, but since you started, we'll start District 5.
Okay. Mr. McLean, thank you for presenting and coming to us on this. The operating hours, is there any rationale as to why you're running from 5 in the morning till 9 at night?
Most of especially on a route like Route 20, a lot of it's commuter traffic coming by. That's where a lot of our tenants will be coming from. And if they're running to a job in the north, north of Virginia or something, they'll be coming by there at 5, 6 in the morning, and they'll be doing something then, or when they're coming home at 7 o'clock or 8 o'clock at night. It's there's not that much traffic at that night, but it's a part of the marketing, and it's most other places that I've had facilities, it's either 24 hours or 10 o'clock at night is what we've had, and it's been near in residential areas and stuff, but it's I don't feel that the lights or the driving part is with a 50-foot buffer should bother those properties at all. And and it's a secure property. Everything's, people aren't going to be getting in trouble. There'll be over 30 cameras on site. It's fenced, so kids can't be playing in there, or people won't be doing illegal things. They'll go someplace else where you don't have the cameras. It's going to be it'll be a safe property, and I do restrict it. I don't allow 24 hours like I did in my first property because I did have problems, at 1, 2 in the morning, and usually it was kids, but it was, so I feel that 5 in the morning till 9 at night is are reasonable hours, and they say you won't see anywhere near the traffic or the light as you see in a regular subdivision.
Well, having been a commuter between Lake of the Woods and Roslyn in DC for 20 years, I was never interested in stopping at a storage site at 4:30 in the morning or when I came home at night. What my point is that this property, which I believe is different from that in Culpeper, backs right into the residential homes on Lake of the Woods. So noise consideration, as well as light, environmental issues are a concern to the families on Lake of the Woods that back into your thing. And it seems to me it'd be more reasonable, particularly for those that have school children, to take another look at the operating hours. I'm not real thrilled with 5 in the morning. 7 to me would be more appropriate, nor 9 at night.
Well, there are also the people that use self-storage or small contractors. They come in and get their tools early in the morning and show up on the jobs at 7 to 8 in the morning also. Small painters or carpenters.
I understand that. I'm talking about the families that coexist right behind your facility.
Well, I tell most, if they're school age kids and stuff like that, they're up and going before, by 7 or something. But, there's not much noise. Self-storage is a quiet neighbor. There's not much disturbance. It says much less noise than a regular subdivision.
Okay, well, I'm still not real happy with those hours, but let me move on to another issue, and that is what kind of signage are you planning, and where do you plan to put it?
Well, we've got a tentative location for the entrance that we had, for site distance reasons, identified back in 2014, and it'll be near that, pretty close to that driveway. It'll be back off the road. We've got a 100-foot offset, so we'll be back out of the line of sight of any traffic or anything. We can go with whatever your regulations are. We need to have some signage, let people come down through there. It's a 55-mile road. But, I'm open for, I'm not talking about, I don't want to put a high pylon sign or anything there. It'll be low profile, something that can be landscaped. It can be, aesthetically pleasing and not obnoxious.
Thank you.
Mr. Zellmaker, do you have any questions? I'm sorry. Ms. Zellmaker, do you have any questions?
No, I don't have any questions.
I don't have any questions either. Mr. Yancey? Mr. Yancey, you have any questions?
Mr. McLean, I have several questions. Will you have personnel based on site at all times at the facility?
No, nobody will be living on site. It'll be just regular business hours, 9 to 5.
Okay. Second question. What items would be restrictive as to storage?
As far as, just like the normal laws, as far as, items or explosives or, there's so many uses for self-storage. I mean, we'll have outdoor storage for RVs and boats as we were stated before. And, but it's, mostly probably 85 to 90% will be residential storage for home items. And then 10% to 15% will be small commercial or inventory storage or record storage, something that's people want in a secure environment that's in their climate controlled, where it's a controlled environment that has cameras on it. You know?
Okay, follow-up question, that is, in the 8-hour period that you will not have a personnel on site, how will you be able to control those issues?
Well, we've got cameras on site. We've got a gate restricted access. So you get a code when you lease a unit. When you leave, your code's deleted. Nobody's able to get into the facility unless they are a tenant or have been given a code. And that's everything's timed. There's software. Our software shows the time when people come in, and it also shows who comes in by the code. So if they come in at 8:15 in the morning and have a certain code, then I know it's unit 402 that comes in, and that's how we keep track of how many people are in there.
Okay, last question. Since you have a tributary that leads into the Lake of Woods main lake, how are you going to have, is there a second backup control measure that will be there for storm water sediment runoff?
Well, we're just starting to work with an engineer on that. We're working. We talked about that before, back in 2014. They have that runoff stream. I know everything runoff comes from 20, comes across there and comes through, and the detention facility is will be a pretty good size. I'm not sure what things have changed quite a bit since then as far as the water quality and everything. I'm not really sure how that goes, but they plan on a 100-year storm coming through. So, we can talk when we're going, the site plan was we're going through is, what's going to be adequate and to protect that neighborhood.
Is there adequate room for a stormwater retention pond?
Yeah, yes, there is. I gave you some hand drawings that were with it, and there's a detention pond above. It's going east of that stream that catches all the water coming down the hill.
Okay, I must have missed that. I apologize.
Yeah.
That's all my questions, Mr. Chairman. Thank you very
Thank
much.
you, Mr. Capel.
Yes. Hey, Mr. McLean, thanks for joining us. So, your application says that you're going to have a 30-foot buffer in the back and then 20 foot on either side. Am I hearing that you're fine with the 50-foot buffers that are in the conditions?
Yeah, because especially with the C2 zoning, things change. So that'll, we're fine with it. We're fine with it. I would rather go back to the 30, but I realize why. And I think that's one of the things that a 50-foot with all that natural barrier will really help with the lighting and any noises or anything also.
Yeah, I think particularly with the homes there, that's a very, very good idea. The other question I had, I have several actually. So the 5 to 7 year build out, I don't quite understand what you're proposing here. You say for the first 5 to 7 years of this project, approximately a third of the frontage on Route 20 will be disturbed, screening the construction of all building located in the back of the property. What do you mean by that, disturbed?
Yeah, that was the initial plan back in 2014 would have been to try to buffer that part of the development. But now we're told by the engineer that we're going to, to be able to do the stormwater management, we're going to be probably taking down part of that buffer and having to re-landscape instead of leaving the buffer.
So did you mean actually undisturbed? For the
We
first
had-
spot?
Right. Well, that was in the first plan.
I understand.
We were,
Okay. Well, the language as it's written here implies that the front third of the property would be disturbed, which would mean normally that it would be under construction.
right.
And I was trying to understand how the disturbed front third would screen the construction in the back.
Okay. I think when I originally did, I was going to try to leave a buffer in some of the trees in the areas I wasn't going to be we were talking about putting storage in the back first and then coming up to the front where
Okay.
I'm not sure if that's going to be possible now if we're going to have to screen all the RVs and stuff from Route 20. You know,
Yes.
and also I just, but whatever we do, it'll be, that front will be that whole frontage will be like ornamental fencing and landscapes. Did you see the my site up in Culpeper or?
Sir, I looked online at it. Yes, sir. I did give it a look. Okay, so can you talk a little bit about the construction itself? Like, so let me make sure I understand still. So you're still intending on building the buildings in the back first, correct?
I'm not sure. I've got to talk with everybody, especially now when I first proposed the property, I was putting them in back and saving the front for later.
Mm-hmm.
But because we have to screen at the very end of everything in the 2014, they put a restriction on where RVs or boats could be. They can't be up front without putting like an unsightly screen in front, so that the buildings will probably have to come up front to begin with so you can't see the boats and cars and RVs that are going to be stored on the property. We're trying to make it so it's just aesthetically, when you're driving through, you'll see nice buildings that have stone fronts, stuff like that, and well landscaped. And then the RVs will be tucked behind the buildings. And then if some of the future construction you won't see either, because the front will be hiding it. So we don't have to, it really takes care of itself if we build up front a little bit more.
Okay, so Mr. McLean, the sketch that I'm looking at though doesn't seem to reflect what you just described.
Right, that was the initial plan
In 2014.
2014, but
Okay.
right at the end of that, before it was approved at the end, but when they did it, they came in with the 50-foot setbacks, and then they put in the restrictions on the buffers and stuff.
Okay.
Where I was going to do some of the storage out front and leave some more of the trees or something out front at first, and then later on disturb the front a little bit more. But now that there's no way to really buffer RVs or any of that stuff unless you put up like unsightly screening that you'll see prevalently from Route 20, where we'll probably put buildings closer to the front, landscape the front real nice, and with the ornamental front, it'll help, as people are driving by, it'll help the RVs and the buildings disappear by having nice ornamental fencing and landscaping and stuff.
I'm wondering if you might update this plan then, because this just doesn't really reflect what is going to happen. So I'd like to see what you're actually going to do. And I understand this was the older plan, and I understand things have changed, but maybe ahead of the next meeting you might be able to provide another sketch, and then I'm not sure, honestly, from a homeowner perspective, would I rather have RVs and vehicles. Of course, with the 50-foot buffer, it probably would be okay. So that would be one thing. I'm wondering if we could get an updated plan of what you're planning on doing. And sir, I understand you've described it. I'm not saying that it would just be good to see it on paper. And then so back to kind of my original question. So the construction itself is how long would you, just rough estimate to whether it be the full project or perhaps you're building part of it now and another part later, just roughly what's the time to put these buildings up?
Well, probably it would, we would move the dirt on the site and regrade it on most of the areas that we can get into now. So now that we have bigger buffers, our buildings are gonna have to be designed a little bit differently to be able to get our square footage and our unit mix in on a smaller piece of property, basically.
Right.
So that's one thing we're working on right now. And so pretty much we'd be moving the dirt on most of probably 7 acres or so to get started with. Build four, but we'd fence and landscape the whole frontage of Route 20 immediately, as in the phase 1 part.
Okay.
And build 4 buildings, and which will be around 250 units, and then probably in a year and a half build another 150 to 200 units, and then another year and a half. That's what it takes, about a year and a half to fill up 150 units or so.
Okay.
As far as to get them into your system.
Okay, got it. So what you would effectively do is kind of put your front sort of buffer and fence in, and then clear, for the most part, where your buildings would all eventually go. Right. In the first phase, and then you would construct the buildings. And each building, I mean, we're not talking 5 to 7 years of straight construction. We're talking, maybe 3 months of construction, and then a year and a half pause, and like another 3 months.
Right, probably more like a 6-month construct. Well, it's going to be, the building construction is probably about 4 months. It's going to be probably phase 1. If we can get in and get our grading, getting everything set up, buildings delivered and everything, it's probably going to be a 9-month process.
Got it. Okay, sir. The reason I'm asking, sir, is just the way this was worded. It sounded like there would be, 5 to 7 years of disturbed land, and so I've got a pretty good idea that that's not what you're planning on doing. So thank you for that. Let's see. So Sandra, just a quick question for you. As far as the landscaping along Route 20, we have standards in place for that. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay, great. So this would conform to all of those existing lighting and landscape standards.
Yeah, it would need to, and that would be verified during the site plan approval process.
Okay. Has Mr. McLean, Mr. McLean, have you had a chance to look at those landscaping standards as they exist now?
Yes, I have.
Okay, and so you're fine doing the landscaping that's required per the ordinance along Route 20, along with the 50-foot buffers against the houses and the side yard?
Yes, I am. Yep. Okay,
great. Okay. As far as the hours, Hutch, I definitely understand your concern, completely. Something that's maybe not known about me. I was a cable TV installer up in Fairfax for about 5 years when I was a younger kid, and we actually used to work out of public storage, is what it was called. So we would report there every morning, and all of our equipment and our routes would be given to us out of the storage building. We'd collect all of our materials, we'd load our trucks up, and then we'd go, out and work for the day. And so I assume that's what Mr. McLean referencing, and we were, we were young, right? So we, maybe we'd have music and stuff. Do you have any, we might pull our trucks up, listening to our rock and roll, how young kids are. And do you have any standards, Mr. McLean, that relate to noise, just generally that the occupants would suffer some sort of penalty or consequences if there was a lot of noise early in the morning?
Yeah, I had some problems in Culpeper with some of that when they're coming in with some of the cable. It was with internet cable people
we were a rough group, Mr. McLean, I tell you.
Well, they were all good guys, but they would come in and you'd be yelling and screaming and stuff like that at 6 a.m. and we have to clamp down on them on that and got with the owners of the companies and got it straightened out. And,
okay, but is that somehow instantiated in your rules? Is that written in the rules of the storage facility?
Well, yeah, as far as in the lease, as far as noise and trash and how you drive in the facility and how you treat other people in the facility, basically, it's a lease that probably they had that in public storage where you were too. I don't know if anybody was watching it or not, but and also we've got cameras. If we have somebody that complains about it or we find out about it, we can go back in up to a month later and look on cameras. We don't watch the cameras all the time, but we got a lot of recording devices. The cloud's pretty big now, so there are these recording devices. So we can substantiate what if they did make noise or what was going on, and we can clamp down on it.
Yeah, because the units I worked out of didn't back up to homes, so I'm definitely sensitive to Mr. Hutchinson's concern regarding noise, and I'm just wondering if there might not be, instead of 5 a.m. maybe 6 a.m. but also maybe it might help if we could see the sort of rules that you have, regarding noise. Maybe you could provide that before the next meeting.
Yeah, we haven't worked up a contract yet, but I can show you my last contract, which will be similar to what we're going to be working on. So,
or even some signage that says quiet area or something within the facility.
Yeah, we do that. Also, the facility is a 10-acre piece, so a lot of the stuff noise isn't like being right next door either. So, but yeah, we have no smoking, no pets, no dogs running around, and we can definitely put signage up for noise.
Yeah. I live a good distance from 33, and I regularly hear cars with those booming bass speakers, and you get one of those that pull up in the morning, and in the back there, and all those homes are going to be hearing that booming bass.
Yeah.
That's all I have, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
Thank you. Just a quick follow-up based on all of that, Mr. McLean. I would ask, can you readily get us a better concept of what you're going to do, since what we have is not what you're proposing now? And I know cost something, but if you can just kind of give us something a little better than, I don't need any more pictures of what the interior looks like or the exterior look like, but kind of the buffer. And you can hand draw it to some degree with some, the buffer where something's going to be, where Route 20 is. So we just kind of get a better idea of what you're doing.
Okay, yeah, because we're talking, we should have something next week from, preliminary from an engineer as far as on where our workable space will be once we, do our stormwater management and have to figure out how we have to put our buildings in different places now because we're a lot more restricted on property now,
Okay. We appreciate it. Any other questions? Thank you, sir. Any other questions for the county? Any other comments from any commissioners? I would solicit a motion, if not there being, to continue this one too till the public comment October 9th to pick up again October meeting, which is the 15th, correct?
Yes.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman,
So-
I'll make a motion to open the public hearing through October 9th to receive comments.
For resolution 20-02.
And 03.
Yes, sir, for resolutions 20-02 and 20-03 simultaneously.
Mr. Capel, just to clarify the motion, it sounds like you mean continue it until October 15th, but receive public comments until October 9th. Is that right?
Yes, that's not what I said, but that is definitely what I meant. Yes, continue it until October 15th. In the meantime, receiving comments until October 9th for resolutions 20-02 and 20-03.
I'll
Is
second
there a
the
second?
clarified one.
Is there a second?
I'll second it.
So properly moved in second, moved by Commissioner Capel, second by Commissioner Hutchison. All in favor, say aye.
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 All opposed? No opposition. Commission carries it unanimously. All right, folks, we've been at this for a minute, so we're gonna walk on through it as much as we can. We have a work session here. There are some items we need to take care of, so I will ask Mr. Capel if you could help us out a little bit with what you're working on and what the proposals are that you work with Mrs. Thornton on.
Yes, sir. And also, I briefed Jim Hutchison as well, and he had some
Okay.
great comments. So I'll do it very quickly. The first is the waivers having to do with the subdivision ordinance. And Mr. Lansing provided us a memo on that. My suggestion would be, if I may, Mr. Chairman, would be to, maybe we discuss Mr. Lansing's memo either at the next meeting or the first meeting in November. Give us all time to read it, but basically what it's designed to do is to identify the waivers that can be given in the subdivision ordinance, and then give a means of notification to the Planning Commission of those waivers. And Mr. Lansing, just to give you a moment, did I summarize that correctly?
Yes, sir.
Okay, great. And are you okay if we perhaps look at it in more detail, either in the next meeting or the first meeting in November?
Yeah, I don't care when the Planning Commission considers it. That's
Okay.
entirely in the commission's prerogative.
Great. So that would be that one, Mr. Brooks.
Hold on a second, Mr. Capel. I would like to
Yes, sir.
move that one to the next meeting, because it's just agenda item, so I don't need a vote on it. But I really want us to bear in mind that if we get real busy with these comments and things, it may still get bumped to the next one. But it's important enough that we should try to get to it as soon as possible.
Okay, great. The other, so great. So that takes care of the waivers. The second item is complaints, just general complaints to the county. And Julie, after the last meeting, forwarded a link that the county actually has an online complaint form, and which is interesting. And those complaints go to Allison Simpson and the other ladies that work with her. Forgive me, I don't recall the names. And they sort of monitor those and get those to the different departments. They also receive phone calls and they receive emails as well. But none of those complaints actually get logged into that complaint form system. In speaking with Jim Hutchison to try to scope this just to, the Planning Commission, I didn't intend to get into the whole, county complaint process, for police and, whatever it might be. But in speaking with Jim, we felt that the Planning Commission would like to know complaints related to land use. It could be past decisions, it could be complaints, I might suggest that, for instance, when Tracy Newman gets a phone call from a citizen talking about, you know, an upcoming item, that might be something that might, you know, get documented. And so we're learning a little bit more about the complaint system, and I think the focus is going to be to try to figure out a way that we can funnel complaints having to do with land use, that perhaps maybe the Planning Commission gets a report, you know, every month or every quarter, and gets a list of the different complaints that came into the county that might pertain to the work we do. You know, whether it be a lighting complaint, a noise complaint, a neighbor complaining about trash in a person's yard, you know, anything really having to do with land use. So be looking into that a little further. I've got some ideas, but again, for sake of time, I think we just need to dig in a little more and see what's possible, and then come to the commission here with a proposal. Assuming, let me ask this of the fellow commission members. I mean, are we in agreement that it would be good for us to know the complaints that come in that might have to do with our work? You know, any, you know, things having to do with land use, not that we would resolve them, but we would at least see that they occurred.
I think that's a good idea. I mean, I wouldn't have even thought about when you brought up with the storage units that there was an issue with noise that early in the morning, that people would be going to work and getting their equipment there and playing their music and stuff. So, you know, had there been a complaint about a similar entity, then we would know to think about that for the next one, had we not had that experience in our group.
Okay.
I think the consensus is we are. And again, I think that we need to move that to the 15th meeting, and we may bump that to the first two, but let's not bump it out so far till it seems like it's not important.
Okay, great. So that the complaint. The last issue is just the general timing of how we receive information and how the department you know, has to handle applications and different things that come before us. Ms. Thornton, one thing that we didn't do and we should have done is we asked Mr. McLean, for instance, for some information. We might want to let him know, you know, a good date for him to provide it, so it doesn't show up the morning of the meeting.
Yeah, thank you for that reminder, because I was thinking as you all were asking for a couple of pieces of information, I think and would recommend that we ask to receive that not later than when we receive public comment. So all of that information can be forwarded to you at the same time. So that deadline would be, yeah, October 9th.
Yeah, and the implication, you know, to that would be that you know, if we're not provided, and I'm not saying we would hold fast to this, Mr. Chairman, but if we're not provided the information from the applicant, you know, maybe we would need to defer, you know, if it's not provided in a timely manner. But it would at least give them a metric, you know, a date to work towards, and know the expectation. And then we could decide, you know, if they didn't provide it or they were late or whatever, we could decide at the meeting whether, if, how something should be done about that. But I think it is important for every matter, you know, that we're dealing with the public and or constituents / applicants, that everyone has an expectation of when information should be provided so that we have enough time to look at it. And then longer term would be working with Ms. Thornton and basically coming up with a calendar for 2021 that lays out the meeting dates, and also like some timelines. So for instance, if you're a person who wants to do an SUP, there's a date, you know, so if you submit your SUP application with the required information by date X, that means that your issue will be on meeting Y. And we can actually kind of lay that calendar out for 2021. And, you know, everyone would know, you know, what the expectations are. We would know what the schedule is. The citizens would have an understanding of you know, if I submit this day, that means I'm going to be on this meeting, and have a little bit of visibility, you know, and also maybe help the planning staff out, because if there is a calendar that's been approved, you know, it makes it harder for people to change that and give preference or delay issues based on whatever reason. You know how it is. But then we would all know, we would all have a schedule, and the staff would know. The other thing related to that would be looking at whether it's possible for us to get material a little bit earlier than the Friday before the meeting. I know this one here with the 300 and some odd pages, and then the subsequent material that showed up, you know, a couple, 2, 3, maybe 4 days before the meeting. It was very, very difficult to really sift through it all and have a good understanding of what the applicants were proposing. So in summary, 2 things to try to, for the rest of this year, have a little better definition of expectations of public comments and applicant information. And then longer term, next year, trying to develop a not a rigid calendar, but at least a little better idea of when things get applied for, what meeting they should show up on. That's all I have, Mr. Chairman.
First, I want to say thank you all for working on that. Thank you for your comments and your theory. I would ask if Mrs. Thornton and Tracy would get busy on that calendar and have it ready for us by our November meeting, if at all possible, so that we'll have time to tweak it before the year starts and then move forward. Is that something you think we could do, Ms. Thornton?
I'm going to say yes, I think so. It may partly depend on what sorts of applications, if any, come through before that time. At this point,
Sure,
we haven't
sure.
received anything that I would expect to go on the November agenda.
Okay. If that,
So
if
yes,
that could be
I think
done,
that,
if that could be done, it would be greatly appreciated by the chair.
yeah, we'll work on that. As I told Mr. Capel, I had been more accustomed to working with a calendar of deadlines previously, so I definitely see the value of that.
Thank you so much. Any old business?
Mr. Chairman, sorry to interrupt. Just to be clear, you're looking for a calendar for 2021, right? You're not looking for the calendar for November. You're looking for the calendar for 2021.
And present it to us in November.
Got it.
Anyone have any old business? Mr. Johnson, did you join us for supervisor's report? Mrs. Thornton, your report, please.
Well, as I just mentioned, at this point, I don't have anything for any petitions for a November agenda. I would mention, and I think perhaps I had commented on this a time or two in the past, because I know Mr. Yancey had provided some informational items by email. We have been getting a number of inquiries from potential solar developers in the county. I'll have my second Zoom meeting this week, tomorrow, relative to potential solar development. So there's a lot of interest in Orange with respect to solar development. So I think that probably at least not in this calendar year, but I would say most likely next year, you'd be looking at at least a couple that I know of applications coming our way.
we will certainly have a calendar ready to accommodate them. Thank you so much. Commissioner comments, we'll start with 1, go through 5, and that way. Mr. Capel, you have any comments?
No comments, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Yancey?
Yes, Mr. Chairman. Two things. One, I have just sent each one of you, except Eric, I apologize. I forgot to send it to you, and I'll send it. There is a review draft of the GWAP rezoning application packet that was done back on November 6th of 2018. I think that will clarify for all of you that there is a very extensive review process that an applicant has to go through to rezone any property within the GWAP area. So therefore, there are a lot of checks and balances. I think some of you expressed a concern about tonight, and I just wanted to look at that. I don't think that draft, and Mr. Hutchinson might be able to comment a little bit about this, whether, I don't recall it being altered a great deal. There may have been some semantic issues of changing the words and eliminating a certain phrase, that kind of thing, but the content was pretty much etched in stone when we got to that point in November of 2018. The second thing I would recommend to Mrs. Thornton is my understanding that Madison County has come up with some extensive ordinances and requirements for solar farms. You might want to consider contacting somebody at Madison County, whether it be the county administrator or the planning director, whoever that may be, to see if we can get access to that information so that we can all have a chance to review it as we get into this process of being, having more solar farms being considered. I know there's some concern now that because Dominion Virginia Power has taken over the only one that we've approved so far, that being as big and powerful as they are, they may try to circumvent some of the things that we were concerned about back originally. That's all I have, Mr. Chairman. Good meeting tonight.
Like, I would ask for my comments that we develop a resolution for Supervisor Goodwin. The county gave him an appreciation reception yesterday, and I would like to see the commission develop a resolution for appreciation and present it to Mr. Goodwin. Also, if we can agree to that, then I'll work with staff and the attorney to get that formulated if we think that's something we want to do.
I'd make that motion, Mr.
Okay.
Chairman. I'd make a motion that we do exactly what you said.
I second that.
It. I mean, Teal Goodwin has been with us a long time.
Yep. He's continuing on, but and the spirits are good, but there's those issues still remain. It's been moved and second. All in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposition? Motion carries.
Mr. Chairman, who seconded? I'm sorry. Who seconded the motion?
I did.
Okay, thank you.
Next meeting date, October the 15th.
No, you got Julie and comments.
Oh, I'm sorry, Julie. I apologize, Julie.
That's okay. I don't have much to say. I just wanted
to
to thank Jason for doing the research that he did and educating us on those issues.
Mr. Hutchinson, you likewise. I apologize.
No sweat. Just to supplement Jason's effort, one of the issues we discussed is a concern because of requesting Sandra and crew to do extra calendars and work, is it's a resource issue, and we've added on to that. So we really need to address the resource issue within the planning directorate.
So let me help you with that real quickly. I have been told that it's the priority hire of the county, and they have hired a firm to accommodate that, and I think they're moving pretty rapidly. But in the process, you know how that is. You really got to find the right person and the right fit.
Yeah. The other thing is, I agree 100% with what Mr. Yancey indicated on the solar farms. I attended the Economic Development Planning Group each month, and both Supervisor Crozier and Frame were very concerned about the Dominion takeover and how they weasel their way through regulations and get what they want, contrary to what the county or the local government wants. And George, correct me if I'm wrong, Madison borrowed their stuff from Culpeper?
I think that is partly, and I think some of it also came from Fauquier.
So we may, it may be useful to ask Sandra to see if we can get a copy of their ordinances from Madison, Culpeper, and what was the other one, George?
Fauquier.
Fauquier, to see whether we can improve on ours to I know some of us attended the education seminar in solar farms for zoning after we approved our ordinance and recognized that there were some areas in there that we were not smart enough to, we just didn't know about, that we should have probably included in our ordinance. So to take a look at that may be prudent to prevent problems in the future.
Well, it's my understanding that we don't actually have an ordinance that's a special use permit process, and
We decided on a special use process to retain flexibility so that we could deal with each solar
right.
farm separately, but there are some pretty standard stuff in there that we may want to expand on it for the next one.
Right, yeah. I think there was.
Mr. Chairman, Mr. Hutchison's point on that seminar that he and I both attended up at Opal. One of the horror stories we heard about in another locality in the northern neck was a farm that was acquired, and if Jim correct me, I believe it was 200 acres. They stripped every inch of topsoil off of the farm, sold most of it, used some of it, and therefore, once the solar farm that has been built on it, there's only an area maybe of 25, 30 acres that has a potential of ever being able to grow a crop. So that's the adverse environmental impact that some of these solar operations can have on a locality.
Yeah, that's correct, including the planting of and growth of vegetation in between the solar farms. There was a lot of things that we just didn't know about.
Hey, Mr. Yancey, in the mining industry, they call that reclamation.
Yeah.
I'm sure Mr. Thornton has taken all y'all's comments to great advice. I'm also listening to a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Second.
I second
Yeah,
that.
second. All in favor, say aye.
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 Thank you all for the work. We're adjourned. We'll see you again on the 15th.
George, it's raining here in case you want some.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you.